Hey, Smart Vortex, and continuation of my vlogs like diaries, just talking about various thoughts in my head that have been swimming around or ruminations, mostly based around philosophy, observation, that sort of thing. So I thought I'd talk today. I know I've been sort of down this track of philosophical pessimism and all that sort of thing, and unfortunately, if you're not into that sort of thing, sort of nihilistic rumination and search for meaning and existentialism, and that I'm going to carry on with today, basically, in a sense, but in a sort of realist sense, because I wanted to talk about that is why you failure, and why, even though we fear it to a huge degree, everybody, I think, in a lot of ways fears failure. I think in a lot of ways we live in a culture that is very this sort of hustle culture where it's like you have to deny that failure is just a part of the process. It's just like you always have to be a winner. I guess it's a result of living in we live in a sort of hyper capitalist society. Where competition drives the economy, really, in some respects. But anyway, that's another thing. So, yeah, why is it not necessarily the end of the world to fail? So this is what I think about that. So I think you can never really truly achieve anything without failing a bunch of times. I don't think. So I mean, if you think of the example of, I don't know, like web businesses or startups, the amount of those that actually fail and the amount of entrepreneurs who actually have multiple failed companies that don't really go anywhere is a pretty high number. It's a pretty high percentage. I think the thing you should always aim to get from any sort of failure is a learning. In that sense, it's sort of positive. You've got to, if you fail at something, then take on board the lessons from that failure and make change. I don't think that's that. It's pretty obvious in a sense, but I think it's a way to grow as a person. It could be emotional failure, it could be a personal failure, it could be a relationship failure, it could be a job failure, it could be a personal ambition failure. Yeah, I think learning how to fail gracefully is a very good life skill, basically. So one example I was thinking of, and this is like a sort of mixture of me of a cringe and cringe moment in my life, and then definitely certainly an absolute fail in terms of what I was trying to achieve. So a while ago, I prefaced this by saying also that I was. So I have bipolar 1 as a mental health condition as part of something I live with, and I wrote this thing, an essay, essentially a short essay, where I attempted to solve one of the most complicated problems in computer science, which is the P equals NP problem, which is well to a factor of maybe 1,000 beyond my intellectual and mathematical abilities. Right? It's not, you know, I'm relatively smart, but I'm not P equals NP smart. There's literally like the world's best mathematicians have tried to solve this problem, and they've never managed it. It's a very complicated problem in computer science. And I was manic, and I thought, oh yeah, I just had this splurge of, I just regurgitated a very definitely shitty version of everything I could remember from mathematics in my computer science class, and just produced just nonsense, claiming to have solved this thing. It's embarrassing now to look back at it, but I was ill at the time. It's funny actually, because I actually emailed it to one of my former professors, it was pretty nice. He just said, he wasn't like nasty back and said, get help. He sort of said, this is a really difficult problem. You should approach it these ways. If you're serious about it, look into this and this and this. You're relying too much on an unspecified technology to try and solve this problem. So that was quite nice. I mean, he actually emailed back and it wasn't a complete ass, So that was appreciated, to be honest. But yeah, that's the sort of fail that comes from exaggerated self-confidence, which is obviously as a result of an illness in my case. But I think learning not to regret these things too much is a life skill as well. I'm thankful in the sense that I do have regrets in life. I've done things which are regretful, but I've never done anything which has been truly. I think there are legitimate regrets you can have in life. Like, I don't know. Say if you there's some instances where it can even be like a sort of fateful regret. So this is an extreme example, but I don't know. Say you're driving somewhere and you accidentally run a kid over on a bike. Not really any fault of your own, just the kid came out of nowhere. Now, I know that's a very extreme example, but that's obviously that's going to play in your conscience probably forever, and you're going to feel guilty about it forever. But that's the sort of incident of like fateful. It's not fate per se. I mean, it's just random chance, maybe, probably, but it will feel on some level like it's a sort of fate just chose you that day. The chaos of the universe just chose you to be for that to happen. And that's a terrible one, really. You can understand how that can really eat people up, to be honest, with that sort of. Thankfully, I've never experienced that. Any regret or failure I've ever experienced has in one way or another been a result of my own action or inaction, and that's the truth of about probably 95% of failure, at least, is it's just a result of your own inaction or action. So it's sort of like for every action there's a reaction, and for every inaction nothing happens, and then nothing happening can lead to bad things as well. If you're too lazy or you don't take action on something that you should act on, which is stating the obvious, I guess. But yeah, I think part of developing the personality really is becoming aware of these things. These patterns that cause failures in your life, which is in a sense is an energetic pattern that occurs across time and space. If you want to view it in the abstract, you are an energetic clustering of atoms that is structured in a certain order and that moves across time and space, and how this thing you decides to act in this time and space will affect will have a relationship with everything else around it. So yeah, I guess into like free will and determinism and all that sort of thing, which I've not got time to go into, I suppose, and I'm not really an expert on that sort of thing as well either, but yeah, basically developing awareness is the thing, really, and just coming to terms and developing strategies for maximising the good stuff in life and minimising the negative stuff, but also not beating yourself up about failures, because everyone fails, and sometimes even failure is it depends. It depends on failure is defined by who. Then when it comes to something like art, that's an incredibly subjective thing. I was actually having an argument with someone, not an argument per se, but sort of talking about Marvel films. Someone posted a meme on Facebook, and I'll end on this example. Someone posted a meme on Facebook about Marvel films, I think Ridley Scott was just saying they're all, sort of crap. Which is honestly something I concur with. I know it makes you sound like a bit of a fag, but I just don't get Marvel films, like the Avengers and stuff. I don't get what the appeal of it is, of those films. Where was I going with this? And then We've got a debate with somebody and they're saying like, I've completely lost my train of thought. What was I going with this actually? It's because I need the toilet. I'm just dying for the loo. Anyway, just need a shit, man. Really, honestly, terrible way to end the video. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, what was I remember what I was going to say now. The art's just a subjective thing, really. There is some degree of like you can objectively judge some sort of technical skill and draftsmanship. Obviously, when it comes to something like film, it's just really subjective. Like I don't like the Marvel films. Generally prefer DC films. Not really a massive fan of those films anymore. The Marvel stuff, I guess, but if someone else wants to enjoy this, fair enough. So I guess in art, when it comes to making art, you just have to do it, and then the people that like it will like it. People who don't will don't, and that's fine. Anyway, I better run now because yeah.